Hello and welcome to Meet Our Team. I'm joined here today by Cindy Valentin. Cindy, say hi.
Hello.
And thank you so much for being my first guest. So this is an informal conversation, weekly or even bi-weekly conversation that we decided to have from starting today to the end of the year to get whoever's interested to meet all behind the scenes people of Draw Change, some of our donors, some of our volunteers, hopefully we'll get some of our children in on the show. And it's just going to be a maybe 20 to 30-minute conversation between Cindy and I. And if anyone has any comments, any questions, you're free to post them below the video, and let's get started. What are we talking about, Cindy? Let's see. What do I want to ask?
So much to talk about.
So today I'm going to interview Cindy. Sometimes people will interview me, and we're just going to play it by ear based off of how we think the public will learn the most about behind the scenes Draw Change. So Cindy is our volunteer program director of our Florida programs, and she also is our marketing specialist behind the scenes. And she has been involved in how long? And I'll let you take it from there, Cindy.
I've been involved with Draw Change since 2012. So that's 8 years now.
Long time.
Long time. Almost 10 years.
Yeah. And what was your first involvement?
My first involvement was with Art Beyond Borders, and we went to Costa Rica in 2012 with a group of volunteers there. It was a large group. It was about 13 people, I believe, that trip.
And then did you go back the following year with us, or you skipped the year?
No, I went back the following year. I went back, and that was also a large group. That 2013 trip was very special to me because I remember you asked me if I can help you out translating, because you were the only one who could speak Spanish, and we're translating with the volunteers. And I remember I was like, yes, I would love to.
So I'm gonna say this because I have a feeling that people will ask, because I always get asked this question. I am not Costa Rican. The reason why we have a Costa Rican program is just because I have personal relationships in Costa Rica. There's a story behind that. And it's on our website if you're interested in learning why we chose Costa Rica as our first international program, but I am not Costa Rican. Cindy, are you Costa Rican?
I am not Costa Rican. I am from Ecuador. Okay. We just happen to speak Spanish.
Yeah, we both speak Spanish. So, so that program is near and dear to my heart. Number one, because it is our first international program. Number two, because it's still going. Mm-hmm. So by now, children that we met that were in kindergarten, first grade, even second grade, honestly, even third grade have graduated and moved on, and we're still in contact with a lot of them. Still, sometimes when we go visit, we see a lot of them. So it's very, very special. So you got involved in 2008, and then by going to 2012, sorry. Draw Change was a concept in 2008. We went to Costa Rica with us in 12, and then 2013. And then shortly, how long after that, your next involvement was emailing me and telling me you wanted to stay involved, and me thinking, sure, okay, we'll see what happens. And then what happened?
And I just kept, emailing you and bothering you, like, how can I help you? How can, we grow? And my idea was, I know that you were going to Costa Rica every year, but you had a 6-year commitment. So that was the plan. And I believe I went for the 4th and 5th year, or the 3rd and 4th year. And then I didn't go for the 5th and 6th year. But I remember thinking, like, oh my goodness, it's about to end. I was like, what are we going to do? And I just kept emailing you, and you're like, well, we can host fundraisers. So I remember hosting a couple fundraisers. I did a very successful birthday fundraiser And this was way back when Facebook was just trying out their fundraisers, and it was successful. And I think it was because it was like a new thing, like everybody wanted to try it. So I would do a lot of like stuff like that, and then I believe you would ask me to help you to translate letters from sponsors. Some sponsors from the U.S. would sponsor children from Costa Rica. And then the children from Costa Rica would write them letters. So I would translate all those letters for you, and then you would be able to forward those letters to the sponsors.
Yeah, I forgot about the translating part. What was your experience with that like?
It was like my heart would melt, like reading all these stories and all these like heartwarming words, and they were just so grateful and just so loving. And then they would just literally talk about their lives, like, oh, today I went to school, we got a cat today, and I love my cat, or I love my dog, and oh, here, I love my sister, my mom has a new baby and I have a new baby brother. So it was very personal, because it was kind of like a pen pal type of relationship, and I was able to kind of like be a part of that through translating all these letters.
Yeah, that's so sweet. I think for me, I do so much of that type of stuff that it's easy to forget the sweetness behind it. So it's interesting to hear from other people. Okay, and then did Brooklyn come next? Kind of next, not really, kind of like all mixed in.
Yeah, I think, Brooklyn did come next. So Brooklyn was in 2014. No, 2015, sorry. 2015, I think. Yeah, that was Brooklyn. I met Francisco, my husband, and he was a musician, and he is a musician, not was. He worked at a studio in Brooklyn, and I got really close with his boss, and he was the owner of the studio, and he wanted to give back to the community. And he would say, how can he would just brainstorm with me, because he knew my involvement with nonprofits. And he said, how can we bring something in the arts with the community? And then I remember Draw Change, and I said, well, I'm involved with Draw Change. I'm pretty sure if she sends me a little bit of art supplies, we can do their curriculum. I've done it in Costa Rica. So I can do that. I would be more than happy to do that. So he said, okay, let's do it. And he just gave me total freedom to pick the day that I wanted to do it. And then I emailed you and I said, hey, this is my idea. I kind of want to start a program here in Brooklyn. What do you think? First of all, am I allowed to do that? I remember feeling like, I don't know what she's going to say, so let's just take it from here.
Yeah. And long story short, I said yes. We had a very successful program there. And the reason why that program stopped, fast forward again, is because you moved, right?
Yes, I moved.
Yeah. And you moved to Florida. And again, fast forward. And now we have, COVID. Let's not talk about what we're going through with COVID, just pre-COVID and what's going to be post-COVID. Yeah. We were at 2 homeless shelters in 2 different nights of the week in Orlando. And now, again, pre-COVID, we are at the same homeless shelter for 2 different nights for 2 different groups of children. And what has that experience been like? Because now both of those programs are multi-year programs, and you've seen volunteers come and go, you've seen children come and go, you've been with the children for a while. So what has that been like for you?
It has been, number one, amazing. But number 2, it's very challenging. It's hard to manage volunteers, manage the children, lead every session. It was very, very difficult and very challenging, but it was also just amazing. I love it. It's just something that I look forward to every week. And even when I was feeling very, very tired, all I kept thinking was, once I get there, it's gonna be good. And it was always good, and it always ended good, and I just loved it, and it's been a learning experience for myself personally, and then it's just been amazing to see how our volunteers have grown. We started getting interns. Some interns became program leads who, were able to run the program without me being there. A lot of people, a lot of these interns have really, really, come to me and to you, Jeannie, and just, expressing gratitude and how much, we have taught them in a way. And that's always mind blowing to me because for me, I'm just kind of like, oh, I'm just doing this. I don't see it as like I'm teaching anything. So it's just been amazing, and I can't wait to like fully get back.
Yeah. Yeah, so we are actually in conversations with returning back to one of our shelter programs in Orlando now, and taking that very slow. We do have a few program leads and a few volunteers that are interested in returning, so I'm excited, to see how that transpires. But I want to go back to something you said. The one thing that stuck out to me is almost like the trickle effect. Like you asked me, can I do this in Brooklyn? And then it led to you doing it in Florida. And then we had the bandwidth, or actually the work, to give to an intern, to hire an intern, and actually 2 interns in Florida, one to specifically help with those programs. And then some of those interns and some of also were like repeat volunteers were interested in running the program themselves. And then we were able to add another homeless shelter, and then also another evening to that same shelter. So it's just, to me, it's just always kind of mind boggling how it's, and you just said it, you don't look at it as teaching, or you don't look at it as, you're just doing the work. And that's exactly how I feel. Like I'm just doing the work, and I'm, I used to say this before, I can't say this anymore. I'm going to do it whether I have help or not. And I was talking to someone else earlier today, and the organization has gotten way bigger than me, which is a great thing, a beautiful thing.
You actually taught me that, to like always ask for help. And before, I used to think, especially in Brooklyn, I regret not asking for help. like I remember, like, oh no, I can do this on my own. Like, this is what I wanted to do. A lot of people don't realize, and this is not just a nonprofit, I think it really applies to everything, is that you need help, and you need a team, and you need a support team. And, there are people who are willing to help. And I think, to me, that was also a big lesson, because you definitely taught me that to ask for help.
Yeah. And I think also one thing along those lines is there are a lot of years in between everything that we said, because it might come across as you don't have a job, you don't have a family. So how are you able, or have you been able to do all of this? Because again, from the outsider's perspective, it might seem like daunting, and that there's few and far in between people that could do all the work that you do.
I mean, personally, you put it kind of in a schedule and in a routine. The number one thing that I don't want to shy away from people is that I do have help. My husband does help me. So, when I told him I wanted to run a program here in Orlando, I told him, whatever you can do to help me, that Tuesday nights, I'm going to the shelter, and if you don't mind, because we do have a 4-year-old son. At that time, he was a baby, so he couldn't come to the shelter with us, with me. And I told him, can you take care of the baby? Not take care, I should correct that, but be with the baby while, I run this program on Tuesday nights. And he said yes. And we have gone, Jeannie, we've started 2 programs in Puerto Rico, where my husband did come with us for that trip. And we have asked my in-laws to take care of my son while we do this. So I do want to stress that I do have a lot of help in that regards. And my in-laws, my own family, and my husband have helped us in so many ways that I'm able to run a program. And then on top of that, it's just creating a schedule. And like once you make it part of routine, it just kind of flows. Like you already know, okay, Tuesday nights is I'm going to the shelters, you know. Um, for marketing, when I do the behind the scenes stuff for marketing, you know, I allow, okay, 2 hours a day I'm working on this. Or if I couldn't do 2 hours that one day, then I'll do 4 hours one other day where there's less stuff going on. So I make sure that I pivot a lot and I make sure that I do get my work done. And again, asking for help. That's what it comes down to, asking for help.
Yeah, well, it also sounds like prioritizing.
Yes, definitely prioritizing.
Prioritizing what you want to do, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I would stress that because it is prioritizing what you want, and if you're very very dedicated that you want to volunteer, you're gonna make it happen. Kind of like with everything, you know. If you want to exercise, you're gonna make it happen. If you want to do this, you know, you're gonna make it happen. So it's the same mentality that I have, at least personally, to make it happen.
Awesome. So I put up that banner. If anyone's interested in filling out our volunteer application, wants to know how to get involved, you can visit drawchange.org/volunteer app. I am always, or I'm often, what's the word? I don't know if surprise is the right word, but that you, Cindy, if you come when you come back to me and you're like, hey, I want to help here, or I want to get involved here, because, and I'm not just saying this because you're right there, you're the one person out of all of my years doing conducting Draw Change and starting Draw Change that has been the most consistently involved and in the most involved. And I learned early on the hard way that no one's ever going to have the passion that I do. And I'm not saying that you do or don't, but what I'm saying is that you have given a lot of time to it. And I feel like you and I have kind of talked about this throughout the years, like, but never like, I have never flat out asked you has there ever been a time or times that have solidified for you, because there's a million and one places you can donate to, a million and one places you can volunteer at, that has made a difference for you, that yes, this is the organization I want to stay involved in because I can see with my own eyes that they're making a difference. Do you have any kind of stories like that or anything?
I do. I have a lot, but so like logically and logistically, what for me stood out with Draw Change was how transparent you were, Jeannie, as far as the organization. I'll never forget when I first started getting involved with Draw Change back in Costa Rica. You were like, oh, the sponsors know exactly where their money is going. And I thought that was like amazing. I didn't know many organizations did that back then. You know, now it's more common, but I know back then it wasn't like a big thing. Not a lot of organizations would say that. And I remember being very like impressed by that, and you were just very honest with that. So like that was like the more logical, logistical side of it. And then as far as like how I know that Draw Change is working, I've been a program director now for like almost 4 years now, and sometimes, when you're there every week, it kind of gets the same. You kind of know the same curriculum. You kind of know the ins and outs. And, I was at that point. When we do receive new children, that's when challenges can arise. And there was at one point that we've had the same children for a really long time. And then we got some new children. There was this one child specifically who was kind of giving us a little bit of a hard time. And it was hard for me. And there was an incident at the shelter, and I had to escort this child out of the session. And I've never done that before. And that was my first time doing that. And I was very taken aback and very kind of discouraged, to be honest, because I was like, I've been doing this for so long, like, I can't believe this is happening type of thing. So my ego was kind of getting in the way, and I consulted you and explained to you the situation what we were having. And my, first instinct, you were like, let me get back to you. Let me talk to our therapist. And I said, okay. You got back to me. You said you have to empower him. You have to tell him that you want him to be there. You want to tell him, that we want you here. And I remember thinking, but I don't want him. And I was like, as a program director, you want your volunteers to be safe. You want your children to be safe. And this was kind of like an obstacle, and I just didn't want to face it. And I just, in my head, I'm like, I remember telling you I don't want him there. And, you were like, well, try this, just try it. And I remember going into that week and I was just like, okay, let me do this. And I just, I pulled the child to the side and I said, I want you here. I want you, I know that you're not a bad child. I know that, you have feelings and, maybe you were having a bad day. I'm not sure what happened, but, I know you can do this. I know that you're going to be great and you're just going to have so much fun and I want you here. And this child just looked at me and, I'll never forget his look because I think he was so surprised. Like, I don't think he expected that. And then he just went, he didn't say anything to me. He just went inside to our room. And then I said, okay, well, I hope it works. Like, let me see if it works. I don't know, Jeannie. I remember thinking that. And then he was great. It was amazing. He just like completely turned, I mean, there was no issues at all. And I remember I was constantly praising him. I gave him leadership roles because that was one of the things that our therapist said to do. And he was just amazing and me any issues. And I just remember thinking, wow, this is what we do. Like, it's not about, teaching a child anything really. It's just really like talking to them and listening and empowering them, because at that age, it's building their self-esteem. Like, if you think about it as an adult, like if somebody's telling you, well, you know what, you're not part of our group, how is that going to make you feel? Even as an adult, it would make me feel sad. So imagine this child. And that's when it like made me realize, wow, like our programming is so different and so powerful. And this is why I continue to do this. So I think that's my reason.
That's a good reason. I remember that story and I remember that child. And I also remember how like resigned you felt, because like you said, you had never encountered that before. And my perspective is that that's most of the children that we work with. Unfortunately, they have grown up in a lifestyle where they were forgotten a lot of the times, or, on the street and having to defend themselves, and they're a little, have a rough persona, but inside they're still that perfect human being. They're still that child that wants to please the adults. And they're still that child that, in this case, wants to do the drawing or painting that you're asking them to do. So yeah, that's so sweet. And that didn't happen not too long ago. I feel like,
no, this was like maybe a year ago now. Yeah. It didn't happen that long ago. And I think it was just more that impacted me more, because I realized, wow, like I've been doing that all along, but sometimes kind of like you're just going through the motions, and sometimes some things get repetitive. But that, like, this child was just really challenging me. So it was very, very kind of like, okay, what do you do? You've tried everything else and nothing else is working. So it really came down to like, just listen to him. Just tell him that you're there for him. Tell him that you want him to be there. And every single time my son is having a bad day, I always go back to that. I always go back, okay, what's going on with him? What need is not being met? Because he's not behaving bad. And that's what the children we work with, like, we as adults, we get caught up with, oh, how can I fix this situation? You want to fix it. You just want to fix it. You don't want the child to like continue to do whatever that they're doing. But we don't take the time to kind of step back and be like, okay, what's really going on and why are you feeling this way? Because it's always something deeper. It's never, ever, in my experience, surface level.
Yeah, it's never that they don't like the red crayon that you get.
Right.
It's never that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's definitely a heartwarming story. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
I feel like viewers will have a good perspective of who you are to the organization and why you are to the organization. Is there anything else that you could think of that, maybe not, but is there anything else that you could think of that would help people know who you are or what you do for Draw Change?
Yeah, I mean, what I want to encourage people is that I'm not really anybody special or unique, or
You are.
I'm an average, person. I do still have a 9 to 5 job, and I'm a mom and I'm a wife, and I have all these other roles that I play. But I also feel like, it's doable to do, and you can do it, and don't ever feel like, oh, you're not making a difference. I hear that a lot from a lot of my friends. It's like, well, I don't really know if me going once a week it makes a difference. Actually, my husband was one of those people. And I remember telling him, we started a music program, side note, at the homeless shelter. And he would express to me that he didn't feel like he was making a difference. And I would tell him, like, you just being there every single week. Sometimes I have seen it so many times, volunteers not say one word, but they come every week, and the child won't talk to them, and they're trying to talk to them, but the child is not, and they would feel discouraged. You're like, I don't know if I'm making a difference. I'm like, no, you are, because when you're not here, they see that, they notice that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's all it really takes. It's like your presence, and I think that's what's so unique about Draw Change. A lot of nonprofit organizations, you can't do that. You can't be there on a weekly basis or even a bi-weekly basis. Sometimes it's like once a month, but so many things happen that, they'll forget you. What's special about Draw Change is like, this is a very constant thing, and just you being there, and you don't have to do what I do, but I do encourage you just to be there for the children and just be there, a constant presence there, and then you're gonna see like, oh, they asked about you. And I tell them when the volunteers are not there and they come back, I'm like, oh, so-and-so asked about you, and they were asking about you and how were you doing. They told me about your dog, and they're like, oh, they remember that? I'm like, of course, they miss your presence. So you don't have to do anything extraordinary or anything like that. It really is just being there. So I really do encourage people not to feel that way, that they're not making a difference.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, there's so many ways you can make a difference with just a few minutes of your time, a few dollars of your time, for sure. So thank you so much for being my very first guest on Meet Our Team. I'm sure you'll be making a comeback at some point soon. I think next week on the schedule is either a new board member, a longtime volunteer in one of our Atlanta programs, or a longtime volunteer at one of our programs. We're still solidifying the schedule. This is all a very new platform. And if anyone that's watching, if you can, let us know how this platform worked. I think we're live on Facebook now in a few minutes. Any comments or feedback you have on the process, and only the question. Melissa Head said, very interesting and informative. Yay, Draw Change. Thank you so much, Melissa.
Thank you for watching, Melissa.
Yeah, Melissa happens to be a sustaining member of ours. So thank you so, so much from the bottom of my heart and children.
She's also a great super mom and just an amazing overall person who believes in children. So
yay. Yeah. Thank you so much, Cindy.
Thank you.
We'll be live next Friday, same time, same channel. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.